All right. Hello, ladies. Welcome to today's class. If you can hear me, just give me a quick thumbs up, Miss Janice. Thank you so much. Welcome. If anyone's new, my name is Megan. I'm so glad that you're here with us. In today's art class, I'm going to be using acrylic paints. And we're going to be doing a backlighting technique, and we're going to be actually using a secondary technique of using a very particular mountain color for it to blend in with the sky. So it's a little bit of a secondary, like a color theory technique that I recently learned that I wanted to share with you. So our inspiration is this beautiful mountain scene, and the colors you can see are oranges and purples and reds and some dark greens and some beautiful blue for the water. Now your scene can look anything that you wish. You can have big mountains or small mountains. You could create a valley like this if you wanted to, but this is the visual and some of the colors that I'm going to be using for today. But as always in my classes, I'm going to encourage you to use a pencil if you have one. I'll go through the supplies in a minute to dream up an inspiration that appeals to you. So this is a really fun one. I'll go through the list of supplies briefly. You will need acrylic paints today. In all my classes, if you have the basic primary colors of red, yellow, and blue, you'll always be in good shape. If you ever wanted to grab, orange or green or purple, those are all great colors to have also. But if you don't have them, it's okay. I always teach you how to mix those colors in my classes. I always have black and white as well, just to lighten and darken a little more easily. Some people use black, some people don't, and when they paint, but I use it just because it's a very introductory way of just having it handy if you need it. Otherwise, we can darken with other colors too. And then in addition to your paints, you'll need something to paint on. Today I'm painting on 11 by 14 canvas paper by Canson, and it's a terrific medium because it's thin, it's very lightweight, it's easy to store, and I like swapping it in and out of all my frames in my studio, which is really fun. And then I have a cup of water to rinse my brushes, and I have a small plate or palette to mix my colors. Now, I usually grab a paper towel for any messes. I do not have one in front of me, but I will grab one if I need one. That's always helpful to have. In addition, I have a pencil for sketching. Now, I do also have a Sharpie, so I can outline my lines in a Sharpie so you can see kind of my sketching. So that sometimes that's helpful. But what we're going to do is we are first going to do a backlighting wash on the entire painting, which is really fun and different. And the color is going to be this beautiful orangey yellow color, like reddish orange yellow color. So we're going to mix that color together and we're going to paint the whole canvas this color. Now you can have a little water in it to kind of fade it out, but we're going to mix a beautiful color together as our first step. So this is the backlighting technique. It's going to add warmth behind our mountains. It's going to add sunlight in so many areas that we're going to use and we're going to incorporate into our painting. So we're going to mix this color together now. To mix this yellow, orange, vibrant color, we're just going to start with a little bit of yellow on our palette. And I'm going to go for a little bit of a reddish orange. Now, if I wanted to use a little bit of the burnt sienna, I can. I'll have this handy just in case. And I'm going to use one of my bigger brushes. And I'll get a little bit of red on my plate as well. And I want you to make an orangish color, more orange than yellow. So the colors I put on my plate were red, yellow, and a little bit of the burnt sienna, which is like a brownish red. A little touch of that brownish red will make it have a nice color for me here. And if you don't have that, it's okay. You can just add a little more red to make it a little bit more of the blood orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my red. I'm going to put it right in my yellow. This will give me a nice orange color off the bat. And it's going to be a lot more yellow than the red. So I just took a healthy dollop of the yellow and put it right in here. I'm going to do the same thing a little bit more. And always take your time mixing these colors. One of the things I value about these classes, I'm going to bring in a little bit of the burnt sienna, see what that does. It's giving it a little bit of a brown tinge. Interesting. That is not the color I wanted. So then I just start over. It's okay to experiment. The burnt sienna had a little bit of green in it, so it turned it to this like mucky color, which maybe I can use a little bit of this. I'm just going to add a little bit more red to it. So don't use the sienna, that will turn it brown. See how it turned brownish? I don't want it to be brown. I want it to be more orangey. So I'm just going to add a little bit more yellow, but I want you to come up with a nice orange color. And you're going to paint the entire canvas. If you want to use a little bit of water, you can use a little bit of water. There, that's kind of a fun color. Kind of like a pumpkin color. So I'm just going to use this because it's just art. And I'm just going to start painting this on. Now it's pretty dark. I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to put a little water on my brush and I'm just going to move this paint all around. So while this is wet, I'm going to dip my brush in this paint and I'm just going to cover the entire canvas. And it's actually lightening up in some areas. So I want you to paint your entire canvas an orange color of choice. If you don't want to do this, it's okay, but this is one of the fun different techniques that we're going to play with today. And you can see I'm just going to paint the whole thing. If there's some lighter areas, there's lighter areas. If there's darker areas, there's darker areas. It's okay. So you can see it's lightening up a little bit. That's totally fine. And I'm just using water just to move some of this paint around. And I'm going off the edge, off the left and the right. It's just going to give us some warm undertones for the entire painting. So I'm just using a little water just to kind of spread this out. Sometimes if you push down with a little pressure, you can move the ink, the pigment around a little bit before it dries. It's tricky with acrylics, you have to work pretty quickly. But if you have some darker areas and lighter areas, that's fine. But I'm doing some long, smooth, horizontal brush strokes. If it's patchy anywhere like mine, that's totally fine. But you can just add a little more pigment with your brush. And I'm just going to go back in and with some water, just spread this out nice and evenly. We're giving the whole background these warm undertones, and we're going to paint on top of this. We'll also draw on top of this as well. So this is going to give us some beautiful underlaying for the entire painting. And so many artists do this to really start with some nice initial base and warmth. We don't do it that often in these classes, so I thought it'd be a fun exercise, some fun practice for you to try this if you haven't tried this already. And I'm not being really careful. You don't have, this is not have to be perfect layering of color, but do use a little bit of water. It helps a lot for that color to blend right on. You use a lot less paint if you add a little bit of water on your brush. And you can see it's already giving some really nice kind of glow, sunset glow kind of vibes. And it's a little darker up here and it's a little patchy right there. That's okay. We're not going to see that. We're going to be putting a lot of other things on top of this. This is going to give us some nice base layer. So I'm just using some nice smooth brush strokes to get this paint on. But I hope everyone's doing well. I feel like the diseases and the sicknesses just continue to ebb and flow. I have a friend, her husband has had the flu for like 2 weeks. I'm like, or almost 2 weeks. I'm like, oh my goodness. And they have 4 kids. I'm like, oh my gosh. She said everybody in the house got a flu shot except him. And I'm like, because he was traveling and just didn't get it. I'm like, oh my goodness. I feel so bad. So Miss Susan, I hope you feel better soon. I know what it's like. We had RSV a couple weeks ago or not a couple years ago rather, and it kicked our butts. We were sick for like 2 weeks. So all right, so I'm just coming down. I'm going to paint the entire background, but you can see this beautiful warm undertone glow. And the way I created this was, it was really yellow and a little bit of red. And if you wanted to give it a little bit of this brown or rusty tinge, Just add a little bit of green. That will give it a little bit of a brown tone. So once you have like a red base color, if you ever add green to a red base color, it will give you a little bit of a browner tone. And that's why this looks like more of a brownie orange, like a pumpkin orange versus a like Florida orange, right? So I am painting with some water and a little bit of acrylic paint. I want this to be on nice full coverage, but I don't want it to be too wet. So one of the ways to move the paint around, and I'm just working my way all the way down to the bottom, is just to make sure it's not on too thick, it's not too wet. It will take a minute to dry, which is fine. But I'm kind of dipping my brush in water. I'm getting a little bit of paint, and I'm just coming in. And I think we're going to do more of this technique. There's a lot of ways you can use backlighting or doing some warm undertones. And I think that would be really fun in a lot of our classes. So we'll try to incorporate some more of this as we go. But it's so good to see everybody. If anyone's new here, my name is Megan. I have been teaching art classes for over 8 or 9 years now. I lose track. It's been so long. And these classes are meant for everybody. So if you know anyone that might enjoy these, I encourage you to invite them and join our artist community. We welcome all ages and all skill levels, and we paint all different kinds of things. We paint easy things and hard things and landscapes and animals and a little bit of everything, really. Still life. So we are always open to hearing what you want to paint as well. So we're here to have fun, more so relax. We get to know our own painting styles the more we just jump in, and I will always encourage you to go at your own pace. If I'm zooming, I'm just trying to get a background layer on, just like that. But these classes are recorded, so I encourage you to always go at your own speed. And if you have any questions, you may unmute or you may enter any in the chat or the comments area, and I'm happy to get back to you or answer your questions as we go. So your goal for this instance is to paint the entire background. And I am then going to give it a minute to dry. So take a couple minutes, finish this up. And if you are watching the recording, you can always pause the recording if you want to take a few extra minutes. If you are ready to continue, you can continue when we're ready to continue. Sometimes people ask, oh, it's wet, Megan. Can I use a hair dryer to make it dry more quickly? And you absolutely can if you want to. I try to be mindful of how much paint or water I'm using, so it's not too much. So it's always up to you on, what details, or how you apply it and how much paint you use. So just kind of make your own choices there. It's no problem. But mine is still a little bit wet. And sometimes with acrylic, and you can see mine's uneven in areas, it's totally fine. We don't worry too much about that. But with acrylic, it's nice because it dries pretty quickly. And while it's wet, you can still do a lot of blending, which is quite nice. So as this is drying and you're working on your details, you're working on, finishing this up and letting it dry. I'll go through some of the details here for an explanation. So we are starting in the background and we're working our way to the foreground. So as you can see, we did that full backlighting color in there, and we're letting that dry. We're going to use a pencil and we're going to do a little bit of sketching. When your canvas is dry, I'm going to do a valley today. I think the valley is so inspiring in these winter months. Before spring truly hits, some people in the United States don't have we have 4 full seasons. So anybody that lives in Hawaii or California, you see sunshine a lot more than we do because we're based in New England, and I know Janice is probably looking forward to a little more sunshine in her area too. So this is just, I love keeping our inspirations in these winter months just bright and inspiring to keep us more of in a positive light to carry us through to some of the warmer weather and this more sunshine. So I'm going to be using this beautiful valley design, and I'm going to try to do these peaked mountains just like this. I live in New England, so I have typically like rolling hill style mountains compared to West Coast. So I'm going to do more peak styled mountains today. But you as an artist in these classes, you can make your own choices about your design and your style. So just acknowledge some of those details as we go through. So once your canvas is dry enough, we're going to do some sketching. So we'll do that now. If you need a few minutes, again, the class is being recorded. Let me just feel my canvas. It is pretty dry. I'm going to be using a pencil for sketching. Now, if you're using a pencil at home, go as light as possible because you can sometimes see the pencil through acrylic paint unless you do multiple coats. So do just enough of a pencil line where you can see the pencil. Now, for demonstration purposes, I am going to do a pencil first, and then I will outline it with a Sharpie so you can see it. Please do not use a Sharpie at home. I'm doing it just so you can see it on my canvas. Now, one of the first things we're going to do is there are these two big mountains here that kind of meet the horizon line, and then there's additional mountains in the background. We're going to do these two first mountains first that kind of kick off the valley, and then maybe I'll put where my valley starts. So this is kind of a fun thing to consider. Where's your valley going to start? So I'm going to have a meandering river. And for me, it could be right about halfway, right in the middle, a line from the top and the bottom to the left and the right. That doesn't always happen. So if you want to put a little dot in the middle of your canvas, roughly, that is where maybe the valley will start. And then what you can do is I'm going to slowly build a big mountain up. So this is a mountain here. I left a bunch of sky up here towards the top, and I'm going to have another lower mountain kind of come here and go over. So I'll use my Sharpie and I'll outline this for you so you can see it. Again, do not use a Sharpie at home. So that's one mountain there. And then I have another mountain. This is again the start of my valley. This mountain's coming up straight and it's going to come down. So my river in my valley is going to be winding down through this whole area. And you want the sky is important. So if you wanted to add additional mountains behind, I could do that now. And maybe I'll have one big, I'm gonna use my pencil first just in case. If you wanted to build in some mountains, maybe I'll do the foreground mountain first. So I will connect it here and kind of come up and down. Maybe it'll come a little wider. And then I'm going to have a lower mountain here. Again, I'll use a Sharpie in just a moment to outline this for you. And then I'm going to have another mountain come up to here and come down. Now I'm going to outline this in a Sharpie so you can see it a little. And I'm losing some of my sky. And for me, that's okay. I'm just embracing it. My mountains just got kind of big. It's no big deal. Your mountains may be smaller than mine. This is just what happened for me today. So it's all good. I try not to take art too seriously. And then I'm going to have another mountain kind of just come down over here. So I have kind of four little mountains tucked in the back. And then I have the bottom of this mountain and canyon here, which is really fun. So I'll give you all a minute to sketch that. Again, I have a little bit of sky and I have more mountains, which is fine. And then I have a lot of room down here for some nice hills and a river and stuff. But I'll give you a minute to sketch those mountains. And then what we're going to do to create the valley is we're going to use diagonal lines coming high on the right, high on the left. So we're going to kind of create more canyons and more lines this way. And on the right-hand side, it's going to help us quite a bit. So I'm going to have a small hill. I'm going to freehand this. It's going to come up and come down to the base of my canyon here. And I'm going to have a couple different layers that kind of come down to create a little bit of a peninsula. So I'm going to kind of create a little bit of an S syndrome here. So if I drew, this is like a little peninsula here. This is a little bit of a peninsula here and here. My river is going to start to sneak in. So I'll draw those underlines that I just drew just so you can see them. So these straight lines are kind of like the bottom of these. These are kind of hills. See how I kind of drew hills coming in? And there's going to be lines on this mountain. I'll just draw them so you can see them. They're going to come in, that are going to start to draw our eye down towards the middle. So you see how I drew a line just to show you this mountain is sloped. It's coming down and these hills are coming in. It's going to draw our eyes down and in. And then if you wanted to, you could draw your river and that might help you start to bring some of this in. So my river may be here. My river may come around, get skinnier, and it gets a little more open. And then maybe there's another peninsula that comes in here, another mountain that comes in here. And then I'll probably have another piece of land down here. So I'll draw this for you. So my river may be like this. It may be like this. There may be another peninsula here. But this is going to be my river coming through. And then your river can kind of end here. And then I have another land mass down here. This is like a field in the foreground. So see how I've created this meandering river. This actually needs to be a little more skinnier back here from a perspective. So this needs to be a little skinnier here. This is going to be land all right here. So the river's always skinnier in the background and they get bigger as they come to the foreground. So if you need to make your river more skinny back in here, you can. And if you want to add some lines to kind of shape where your land or your hills may be, see, I'm starting to add those layers in. We're going to be painting these in so you can visually see you're creating different tiers. Now over here, I'm not going to have as many. I'm going to have lots of trees over here, but over here, we're going to have some nice, bright, shining hills. So I'm just going to grab another clip here. Let's see. Let's just bring this one down. So just getting these basic lines in is a really good thing. Just helps us give us a little guidance and structure as we get going. If you ever wanted to change any of these, you can. It's no big deal. So I have several mountain tiers. We're going to be adding in some dark purples and some reds to really bring our mountain range to life. It's going to be quite fun. If you wanted to just even start with something easy, is you could paint your river. You could mix some light blue together and just paint your river. That'd be an easy way to get started. So a little bit of white paint. And if you're still playing with your lines, that's no problem. But I'm just going to put a little bit of white paint on my plate. And we're going to keep this simple. It might seem complex right now because we're just doing a little bit of sketching, but we're going to keep the painting part really simple today. I'm just going to mix a nice light blue for the river. And I'm just going to paint it in just to show you. Now you mix white with blue. So I'm just doing this just to get a little bit of a different color on so you can see it. So there's my river. Again, it's much more tiny. If I ever wanted to cover any of this up or change the shape of it, I can. That's no big deal. But this is at least a good start, right? And if I wanted to tuck a little bit of my river like around the corner up here, I could. I'll probably cover some of that up, but I'm just kind of showing you. And I have lots of black lines. I'll cover those up, so no big deal. Sometimes rivers go really far as a wide of an S, and I can fix some of the peninsula. So if anybody wants to just get a river in, you can. If you don't want to yet, you don't have to. But this is just, it's fun to kind of get a secondary color. But we'll be filling in our mountains as our next piece. So doing a basic blue for your river is just satisfying. And I'm probably going to be reshaping mine. Art is always progress. It's always a little bit of a patience thing because you do make a lot of modifications along the way. So take a moment to finish sketching your lines. Again, you're going to make modifications, so no big deal. And if you wanted to put a blue river in as like a rough base, my river shape will probably change. It's all good. And then we'll talk a little bit about the lighting source, and we'll do our mountains next together. So we're going to be using the base light and the glow to hold that warmth for our mountains. And our light source is over here and it's coming in this way. So that these mountains and these hills over here are going to be lighter, and the mountains over here are going to be a little bit darker, which is going to be really fun and different. So take your time. If you're still painting or drawing, do your thing. But I'm going to mix a purple color as our next step. And I'm just going to find a nice medium-sized brush. And we're going to do some base purple for these mountains. So let's see here. To make purple, if you don't have purple, is a little bit of blue and a little bit of red. And always take the time to find a color that you like. Make enough of it as well. There's a lot of lighting and shading in this. We're going to do just enough in our class to get you going. But I have a nice plum purple that I've mixed, and I'll give you all a minute to mix a purple. And the mountain over here, this left mountain, that was our first line that we drew, this is going to be a dark purple. So I'm going to come in and we're going to paint the whole mountain this dark purple. And it's going to come all the way down to the base of the mountain. So for me, it's actually going to come all the way down to here. And it's going to seem really, really dark. Don't worry, we're going to brighten it up, I promise. If you want to use a little bit of a lighter color, that's fine. But this is a darker purple because this mountain is in the shade. There is no light hitting this. And we're going to paint over all of the beautiful background color for this one. Don't worry. So this is a mountain in the shade or the shadows. It's on the left side because the sun is behind it. There we go. And we're going to add, and if you want to do your brush strokes like it's coming down those diagonal angles, like it's coming down into the valley, that'd be really helpful. So instead of doing vertical, horizontal brush strokes, try doing diagonal brush strokes coming down that slope. You may see it in person, you may not. It looks dark, don't worry, we're going to be lightening it up a little bit. So I'm going to come really tight and close next to this river. And again, I want it to be really light to the eye. I want there to be very little river coming through here. I'm just going to go tight to the river here. So I can always change that line if I want to. So I made a dark purple and I'm doing diagonal brush strokes to fill this in. And what we're going to do is you can take a little bit of red and add a little bit, it could be a red, you could just add with a small brush, you can add a little bit of lighting, dusting down a little bit of red to the top edge of that mountain. And we're going to add a little bit of this in kind of stripe-like form. Like there's rivers, like there's canyons that are coming down, and you cannot see it that good. I'm going to bring this a little closer for you. One moment. And you can also mix maybe even a little bit of white to make it into like a, I don't want to say a pink color that make it stand out a little bit more, but I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah, I'm going to add a little pink to it, a little white to this red color. So maybe I'll take a little bit of the red and add a little bit of white to it. And then you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to get a smaller brush as well. Let's see. I'm going to grab like a small size 3 round tip brush. If you don't have one of those, it's okay. Just grab a smaller brush. And I'm just going to come down, and this is going to be a lot lighter, but you'll get the deal here. Just on the top side of this mountain, you're going to add in a little bit of like rock face, like the light is hitting this, just ever so slightly. And I'll probably come in with a little bit of red, but I'm creating these diagonal lines. Sorry, you can't see it that well. It's so dark. But then I'm using my brush, and I could even use a little bit of red to kind of just bring this down and just create a little bit of a rock face down. And you can use your finger to smudge it in, and if you don't want it. We're just creating a little bit of like an edge in this mountain. It is very dark. I apologize. I'm using colors where in person I can see it, but on the camera, I'll make it a little lighter so you can see it here. So this is the line. It's a diagonal line down, just like the line of the valley. So you can see those lines now a little more clearly. Sorry, this is hooked. There we go. There we go. So I have 1, 2 lines, and then maybe I'll just do another one like this is coming down and kind of fading into this area together. So you can use a little bit of the pink, you can use a little bit of the red. We're just adding in a little bit of texture to this mountain, kind of coming in and down. I'm keeping this bottom part of the purple nice and dark. I'm just adding a little bit of this red and pink up here. Now you can do as much or as little this as you like. You're just really breaking up that purple color. So you can bring this red down a little bit more if you wanted to. We're really using the darker purple for like shading and shadows. So you can play with your texture here. Have a little bit of the pinkish red color and then have a little bit of your purple. And you can use the tip of your brush to even come into the reddish pink color to kind of help blend it in. And I'll bring it a little closer so you can see it. So you're creating like different kind of rock faces coming down that hill. And those lines are helping create the valley that we're starting here. That in downward angle from the left and the in downward angle from the right. Isn't that pretty? So again, these are just little details. I'm just going to have you get started on some of this. You can do more or less, but I just want you to get this purple mountain in and just play with a little bit of this detail, and then we're going to move to the next area. And you can always do more work on this after. It's good to kind of let it dry. This is what artists do. They do a little bit of work and then they'll come back to it and make more adjustments. Now this reddish purple color is a great color for this mountain face right here. This is a little lighter right here on this mountain face. These are the first 2 lines that we drew. This is where the light is hitting. And I'm going right over my black Sharpie line. See how that's a little lighter right there? And you can start to fill in this whole mountain ridge right here. This is my pinkish purple red color. And then as you get down, it's going to get darker. So that darker purple color that you use for the other mountain, you can use that at the base of this mountain. And then you can play with how you blend, maybe with your finger. You blend them together with your finger. Look at that. but this mountain is lighter because it's actually hitting the sun. And then this side of the mountain, you can do a line. This side of the mountain is going to be darker because this is not getting the sunlight. And you can see how the base undertones are starting to come through. It's holding a lot of really beautiful warmth underneath our colors. See, I drew a line. I drew a straight line kind of going down to say that's where the mountain shape changes. And then this is my lighter color on top. So I used the mountain on the left was darker base with lighter accents, and the mountain on the right was a lighter color with some darker accents. And I left it a little see-through here. It has a little bit of that under orange glow coming through some of that purple. That was done intentionally. Isn't that pretty? So I'll give you all a minute to play with that, and then we'll continue to work on these mountains up here. Now, if you can guess, the mountains up here are going to have the same look as this mountain here. They're just going to be a little bit different colors, but you're going to have this line. And I'm going to do this line first, and maybe I'll use my pencil to say this is where the shadows will be. And maybe I'll do this mountain in the foreground first. So it could be straight down. It could be angled to the left a little bit, and then it can kind of come back this way. So there's one shadow. This one can kind of come down and loop back to the right. So this is going to be all shaded here. And I'll get my Sharpie so you can see my lines. So I'm making lines on where my shadows are going to be. My shadow is going to be here. My shadow is going to be here. My shadow will be blended on some of these. See, I'm leaving a lighter space on this side, and then there's going to be the shadows on the right sides of all of these. So you can see where we're going. And these shapes and these lines, just have them be, a little diagonal of sorts. They can kind of come back to the right a little bit. You'll play with it. And then I'm going to use the darker color and do the shadows first. And if you want to use a little water, you can use a little bit of water. It doesn't have to be like a totally solid color. You can play with how you fill in your shadows, but if you wanted to use that pencil line first, like I did, to kind of hold that space, you can do that. It's totally fine. But this is one really benefit of sketching, is so you can paint with a little more ease. And the bright undertones are going to be our friend on the other side of the mountain. It's going to be quite fun. We're going to use that to our advantage to create that light source, to hold that light source. So take a minute to sketch in where some of those shadows may be on those other mountains. You may not have 4 mountains like me. You may just have 2, or you may have 1. So take your time, paint in those shadows only. I'm using a small brush, but you can use any brush that you'd like, that you're comfortable with. We'll add a little texture on these shadows after, but we're going to keep them pretty straightforward for right now. We're going to do a single coat of paint. You can make them as light or as dark, seeing that underlying if you wish. But I love that you have sometimes this soft, warm hue of the orange popping through, and it's going to be really fun for many of our layers throughout today's painting. So again, shadow 1, shadow 2, and then I have 2 little mini mountains. And it looks messy. If it's not filled in all the way, it's okay. You can always go in and do a second coat. It's no big deal. I have these little mountains, and I might do some blending of color on some of these little mountains from like the left to the right, but I'm just going to get those shadows in. And even stepping back, you can see that those are mountains there. There are shadows on those sides of the mountains. You can see that there's a mountain here and that this is another mountain. We're going to add a little bit more detail as we go, but you get the picture, right? Get the picture for sure. So I'll give you all a few minutes to get these painted in. If you have any pencil lines that you want to erase, you can erase them now or you can erase them as you go. That's totally fine. Now I have lots of black lines. Those are there just to show you some of the guides along the way. Now this is the fun part. Once you have those shadows in, you can start to pick and choose what colors you want to put on some of these mountains. So one example could be maybe at the bottom of this mountain, we do a little bit of a reddish pink coming in here. And if you want to, you're and it's going to be lighter on this side. So try to keep this color away from this top edge because the sun is closest to this edge. Try to use these pinks down here and maybe put a little bit of paint on like me. And then maybe take some of this off your brush and just start to move this paint in and around. Try to use a little bit of opacity with the water to try to hold some of that brighter color. And just see what happens with a little pigment. Try to do those continuous brush movements. And I'm just going to fill this in just a little just to see how it goes. Then I can always add more pigment if I want to, but I'm doing those kind of downward brush strokes. I'm going to go right down here. Going right to the edge, and I'm doing some nice smooth brush strokes. I'm working with a little water, so it's a little tricky, but it's a little wet, so you can see that there. I'm going to use a little bit more paint just to come in around these edges. I want it, and the water is making it a little difficult, so I'm just coming in with a little paint so it's a little more clean around these edges. But what I want you to consider is consider using a little water. I want you to try to keep this edge nice and bright if you can. So I'm just adding a little bit of paint right here. And I'm going to use a little water on my brush and I'm just going to blend it in just enough. You can even use your finger to do some smudging. You could use another brush just to see how it goes. Any way you want to play with how you blend in this color to kind of create the front of that mountain face is fine. We're going to add a little bit of shading on top of it. For me, it kind of looks like a brown mucky color. I'm just going to add in a little bit more red, but I gave it a little bit of shading. So I'm just going to bring in a little bit of red kind of coming up and see how my brush strokes are very, they're angled because this is the edge of a mountain, right? So it's coming down the mountain. Being very intentional of the direction of my brush strokes. So I add a little bit of red, which is great. And I'll add a little bit of shading a little bit to the edge of this after. But you can see I just have a little bit of color in here. So I want you to come in and add a little color to some of these mountains. The top mountain is going to be a little lighter. So even like more snowy. So I'm going to get a little lighter the back I go. So I might use pink for here. And I'll show you what the back mountain's going to be. The back mountain is going to be like whitish pink. So I'm just going to show you by color how these are going to be changing. So try to use a little bit lighter of a color as you go back. If you want to use more of an orangey color, you can bring in more oranges. It's totally up to you, but play with these colors and these mountains. This one I'm going to do a little bit more pinky. I am going to add a little more red to this. but it's kind of fun. And again, that edge is going to be a little lighter. So play with these mountains, play with these colors. Let me see here. I'm going to make a little bit more of an orange color because the orange is going to kind of help me blend this in a little bit. I also have, this is red. I want it to be a little more pink. So just take your time, play with these mountain colors. I'm going to go reddish oranges and like a lighter pink in the back. So any way you want to be filling these in, feel free to do so. I'm putting a little bit of a yellowish orange right here in this space. Again, I'm holding a lighter edge for the lighting. A lot of those undertones are going to come through, but you really just need to find the right colors for you. That's really what I'm working on as well. So just finding a nice blend of colors, a little bit of an ombre. And if you don't like these lines, that's okay. You can always paint over them. But I'm just going for a little bit of an ombre here. And I mixed a little bit of a blood orange color to kind of smooth some of this over, and that seems to be working pretty well. And a blood orange color is, and I'll probably make it a little bit more red on the bottom here. Blood orange is just a little bit of yellow within a red. And we will add a little bit of like line texture on top of this, but we're just working on the base background colors. Now, if you want to keep this really easy and not play too much with these colors, you could just do like a red or an orange mountain on each of these, and that would be totally fine. I'm showing you different ways of creating different types of colors for consideration. This one up here is going to be more white, so I'm going to paint this one kind of a whitish pink color for some just extra contrast. Nice and slow. So half of these mountains will be shaded and half of these will have, and I'll add a little contrast to this one too. These are just the base colors, and then we can add some of the extra details on top. So you, again, pick any color you want that is lighter than that shaded color. So if you want to do a different color purple, you could do a purple. If you want to do pinks, you could do pinks. Any lighter color is your choice. I was just playing with a little bit of blended colors because the inspiration had it and I thought it was really pretty, but it can be tricky, right? Like, let's be honest, it's hard to create a certain tone of a color if you're not used to doing it. Not easy at all. And I try to keep these classes approachable, so that's why I'm talking through just different ways of mixing colors and making your color selections as you go. Just mixing a little bit of a darker color here so it doesn't stand out too much. There we go. And then if you have a small brush and you want to add like a little bit of like a rock slide, I might add a few darker lines on top. We'll do more of that after. But I'll just give you a little bit of a look and feel of adding in a little bit of like a darker texture as we go. But I'm just going to work on those mountains. Let's see. So this one's like pretty good. I think I want to add a little bit more of a pink color in there. And I'm being really particular with what colors I'm using right now. So you definitely don't have to be this particular. I'm just it's as an artist, you just really pick and choose what colors you want to use. And if I'm doing too much detail for you, just know that it's okay. And you can do your own amount of detail. So you can play with just adding in any colors that you want. You can play with adding in different textures, little dabs, again, to fill in this space. So I'm doing like lots of really beautiful colors. The most important thing is I want you to have some of these edges just be a little lighter. And I want your mountains to be painted in. And you can make choices on where you want to hold that beautiful background color for that warmth to come through. And I'll just lean this forward so you can see it a little bit. There we go. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to paint in these mountains. Again, if there's any questions during class, do not hesitate to ask. This is like a little bit more diff on the difficult side than like some more typical classes, but I want to just the mountain detail, the layering. The backlighting is easy, right? You just paint the whole background, but it's about how you use the different colors for the mountains and the layering on top. But that's just fun. You can always, again, as I mentioned, you can just do basic colors if you don't want to do all the crazy blending like I did. It's no big deal. So this looks a little messy to me. I'm just going to fix it. In these classes, I'll always just paint, and I usually have a method to my madness, but sometimes I just kind of go for it and then I'll just touch it up after. So I'm going to go nice and slow, and work on some of these details. All right, let's see here. I'm going to grab a little bit more of my purple, but just I want you to be happy with some of these base colors. There we go. I wanted to find a color that was a little more muted. There we go. And that will blend in a little bit better. Perfect. Sometimes we just have to have a little patience with the process. And then the right things will happen. And sometimes when we do new things, we play with new colors, it takes a little longer, and that's okay. It really is. One of the cool things about this class is you get to play with colors maybe you're not used to playing with. I'm doing a little bit of an extra lighter line on the top edge of this mountain here. Then I might just grab a wet brush and just blend this in. And there may be some colors you like, and there may be some colors you don't like. And I talk about that because there's some colors I see that I like, and there's some colors I see that I don't like. And it's okay if that happens because you can always go back and fix it. But this is a good start of base layering of colors. Okay. So yeah, that's lighter. That's really fun. I may add a little bit more pinks to this bottom layer, but that mountain right there came out great. And then that one is nice and light. So I might add some more pinks to this one to just lighten it up, maybe like a light pink. And I might use this light pink. Look at this. I'm just going to be a little courageous to create some of these. And I don't know if this is really what I want, but I can at least go for it. And then I might even just use my finger and just blend some of this in to lighten it. I think I need more of a pinky pink, but this is fine. Sometimes when you blend a lot of colors, it gets mucky, but that's fine. It's fine for right now. I'm gonna find a another tone of pink. So once you guys are done that, we're gonna shift down to the bottom. The top part doesn't need to be done to move on. Mine is not done, but I want you to have it done enough that you're fairly satisfied that we can come back to it. So I'm close. I just need a minute. Okay. So I need a little work on this top edge. We'll do a little bit of shading, but your lines may look a little funny, like from one edge to another, like from this mountain ridge. So if you want to come in and like add in like a little bit of a peak crevice or adding in more shading, we can do that after. Nice. So some of the things that we've done so far is we did the full background. You can see the glow happening. It's really pretty. This is not done and perfect, but it's a good start for us to come in and tweak it. We will add some of this dark purple kind of coming down as shadows to make it look a little more natural. This kind of looks like pyramids a little bit, but once we add a little shading to the left side, it'll look better. The next thing I'm going to have us do is we're going to mix a dark green and add some trees, and that will really draw out the grounded areas on our base. So on this river valley, the dark green is going to help us tremendously. If you don't have a land down here at the bottom, so you have I have a line that goes all the way across. This is where my river stops. And this is where there's actually like a road right here, which is really funny. in the inspiration. So there's actually a road that like goes down to the canyon. Anybody wants to draw on a road? I'll draw on a road right here. There's actually a road right here. I'll outline this on my Sharpie. My road got a little bumpy. It's okay. So there's my road. I have a little bit of a road right here. This is going to be like field, and then this is a road going down. We're going to do some green though. So the green is going to really ground us. The mountains, again, they're not done. It's a good start. We'll do the sky after. The green is really going to help us ground some of the edging. So you're going to make a dark green of choice. If you don't have a green, like I have a phthalo green today. If you don't have a green, you can mix yellow and blue together and add a little bit of black to darken it. I want you to be happy with the green color. So you can do a darker green, and I'll use a smaller brush. But I have a phthalo green, and I'm going to add just a little bit of black to it just to keep the process easy. And I'll mix my green with you so we can all do this together. For me, I'm going for like a forest green. We'll see what happens here. Might be darker. It's pretty dark, but it's all right. In person, I can see that it's green. It may look black to you. If anybody's using thick acrylic paints, you can always, these paints are very thick. It's made by a company called Reeves. They make really high quality acrylic paint. Sometimes they mix a little water just to soften it. But your goal is to mix a dark green that we can use for our trees. And I want you to use a small brush of choice. This is like a 2 or a 3 round tip brush. Sometimes there's small numbers on the sides. But this is really going to bring in a little bit of nature to our existing landscape. So mixing a green, and then I want you to have your small brush. I want you to manage how much paint is on your brush. I do not want you to have like a big glop on your paintbrush. I want you to spin your brush on your plate so your paintbrush looks like a paintbrush tip on the end. And what you're going to do is you're going to find these hills and these peninsulas that come down, and you're going to add in trees kind of coming down from the top. So for me, I'm just picking this one. And down here by the river, there needs to be some trees. So I'm just going to add in some green trees. It may look like a tree for you, right? So it's going to be nice and small and low. And it's just going to come up from the ground. So it's coming up here at the top of this hill. Now you could just do like little lines. You could do big, a big thing. You could do some smaller and taller ones. But I want your trees to be right up and down. One of the techniques that we've used in previous classes is to use small lines to guide our shapes. And what that means is you do small lines, you do big lines. It helps add some dimension to our faux forest that we're creating, which is really fun. You have to kind of play with it and practice it a little bit. So you can see down here, I did some tall lines and short lines. These are kind of my guidelines as I built those trees. Now I have like some Sharpie lines in here. I'm going to paint over those. But again, I'm going for the valley. And these mountains and these hills are going to be nice and bright. We're going to add a little bit of color to these, but I'm having us add in just a few trees so we can kind of see the bottom of those hills for our valley. So we're not going to do too much of this, but I want you just to take a few minutes to play with some of this tree-like detail. Now try using, if you want to make it look abstract, hold your paintbrush far back on the handle and just use the tip to come in and to create some kind of faux forest. It allows your hand to kind of relax, to kind of create some faux branches. So I like to alternate from the left to the right side. It's kind of a fun technique to try, to go left, right, left, right. And don't imagine painting the trees itself, the tree forms. Imagine creating the landscape. Try creating the holistic picture of the side of this mountain. And see how I have some gaps here? That's okay. These are just some trees down here in this space. See how it looks far away because they're nice and small lines? Isn't that interesting? Okay. So this is very dense up here. That's okay. And then down here, these are it's still far away. So I'm gonna alternate from the left to the right side of some of these trees. And you can just do a couple of like horizontal brush strokes. And you can decide how tall or how short you want these. Also how light or how dark you want these trees to be. So it's totally up to you. I'm just gonna be in the moment and just fill in a little bit of these trees on this side. Now this is land here, so I'm gonna do a few more trees right on top of this area because this is another field down here. I want that field to be golden. So see, I'm using the trees to help have the tops of those hills pop out. That is the intent of this step. Now, if you don't like your trees, you can always use some paint and you can go in and fix them and update them. That's no problem. This could just look like shrubs too. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of come right over the top of some of your river here. That's okay. Now we're doing something totally different for the opposite side. It's going to be very different for the other side. And I like putting a little bit of the darker green at the base of the trees so there's really strong contrast. So I'm using just a little bit of darker green at the base of some of these trees. Nice strong, because at the base of these trees, it's shadow. There's no light down here. So there shouldn't be any lightness towards the bottoms of these trees. So I'm just using a little bit of my darker green paint and I'm just using a little bit of I'm using the tip of the brush to do a little bit of dabbing at the bottom of the trees. So the bottom of the trees are a little darker. I don't want there to be any lightness at the bottom of these trees. It just doesn't make sense unless the light is hitting, which is possible, but you can see how my trees are standing upright. Even though my hill is sideways, the trees stand up. And I'm just doing again, a little bit of dark touch. Anywhere I have trees, I'm just grounding them. Now you can also do where your river meets your land, you can do a little bit of a dark green to add a little shading. So where your river turns and comes onto your land, you can do a little bit of dark shading. So let's see here, a little bit of the dark shading just along the edge of the right side of the river. What does it do on the left? It's really like at the top, anything on like horizontally, like around this, but anything that bends, we're going to add white as a contrasting layer too. Maybe down here, there's a little bit of green along the edge of the river. You can use your imagination here. So play with those trees, and then we're going to do bigger trees on the other side. So brace yourselves. We're going to do bigger trees on the other side. You got it, I promise. I have a little bit of black lines over here. I'm just going to cover up so it doesn't confuse us. So if anybody, I have black Sharpie so you can see it like crazy. So I'm just going to use a little bit of paint to cover this up. And isn't that great with acrylic? You can easily paint over something. I'm actually adding a little bit of lightness to the top of this. I'll let you decide if you like that or not. That was a happy little Bob Ross accident right there. A little bit of lightness to the top. We'll do that together. It just happened to work out because I was covering some lines. See how I added, I'll show you. I added a little bit of a lighter orange. Look at that to the top side of these hills to draw the eye right underneath the green. My intent was to cover some of the Sharpie lines, but it was a happy little accident that it added. See that beautiful lighting? It added to the top of that hill. So pretty. If anybody wants to add a little bit of like a lighter orange to the top side of these mountains, isn't that gorgeous? It's incredible what that just did. That happy little mistake I just made. Bob Ross, happy little accident mistake. And if you want to take a little water and like blend that down, see that underpainting? It made this really easy to hold that light, to hold that warmth. Isn't that fun? You could use a little water to blend that in. If anybody's trying that. Isn't that pretty? Like just right in between your trees. You don't need to go around each tree. It's just not necessary. But isn't that neat how that just made that whole top of those hills just pop right out? Again, I was just covering up these pesky Sharpie lines. We're all having fun, but that's what I was doing, and that's where this happy little accident happened, just to show you. Okay. So I'll give you a minute to play with that. If anybody wants to mix like a little bit of the lighter orange with white to do the top side of these hills and blend it down, I still have some of that highlighted color coming through. We're still going to do something really pretty in the sky. You can also take a little bit of that lighter color and add it to the sky up here if you wanted to. That's always fun. We'll do nice and brighter, lighter colors up there too. But see how I took a little bit of that color and I scratched it in the corner of the sky? Our light source is right up here and it's coming down and hitting this mountain, this mountain, this mountain, and all of these. Isn't that pretty? And I might even do a little bit of this line right on the edge of this purple mountain. We're going to do that after, but I'll do that again, so don't worry if you missed it. So with these classes, always take your time, take a big deep breath. If you are not doing the exact same thing as me, that's a good thing. It is a very good thing for you to be able to beat your own drum during these classes. You can follow along 100%, but to feel empowered that you can go at your own pace, you can incorporate your own ideas. I commend you for that. It's a really fun part of creating when you get there. Okay. So you're playing with the yellows. We're going to go and do some big major green trees, okay? Next, on the left side. The left side is more shaded. So we're going to hold a little bit of this brightness. We're going to change some of that in a minute, but we're going to add some dark green trees over here with that darker green again. So I grabbed like a medium to small kind of flat tip brush, just a little bit bigger because these trees are going to be a little bit bigger. And I'm getting some of that dark green ready right here. Sorry, my hand's in the way. And I'm going to use the flat edge of this brush, the long skinny part, and I'm going to do the phone pole method. So I'm going to come actually up a little higher and do some trees kind of coming down, and then they're going to get a little more narrow. So there's going to be a whole lot of trees, and I'm going to figure out where I want my trees to end. So I think I want my trees to end right here by the river. And there's going to be a lot of trees right here. And you can just paint this in green if you want. So I'm probably going to just paint green in on the bottom. I'm going to leave this hill here nice and clean. So if you want to outline this hill, that's fine if this is going to be all green on the bottom. This is going to be all green trees right there. See how I added that nice dense color? That was done intentionally. And then if you want to play with adding some of the tree texture left and right into some of this, I'm going to probably use a smaller brush, but this is just You can do, I'll use a smaller brush for the tips of these trees, but if you want to add in some green texture, left, right, I'll switch to a smaller brush here in a minute. But you can see we're creating dense, darker trees on this side. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush just for a little more control. And if I want, I might even bring these trees down here, like they're kind of flittering off in the distance too. I'll make them up, bring them down here, like they're kind of tailoring back. Like they're going down a hill in the background a little bit. So I'm just gonna use a smaller brush, kind of alternate from the left to the right. There's a lot of different ways of creating trees, so find a method that works for you. But I like having nice tall trees, and I just try to focus on making the trees nice and natural. So I do some downward brush strokes, I do some diagonal brush strokes. You can make your trees sparse or you can make your trees full. In this inspiration today, the trees are all different types of things. So just find tree styles that work for you. Your trees, you can always make them a little taller. Play with filling in these trees. Again, it's going to be darker down here at the base of your trees. You can have just a cluster of trees and not do very specific lines. It's totally up to you. These are your details. You could do darker trees overlaying lighter trees. So I just did a happy little accident right here. I did a lighter depth of trees in the background, and then I did a darker tree on top, and it created really cool depth. I did not mean to do that. I'll hold it a little closer. My second little Bob Ross accident. See how I added some darker trees on top? It added really beautiful depth for this space. So if you wanted to add like a darker layer of the green on top, like I had the luxury of doing that, you can do that. So it's totally up to you. I'm going to embrace that. That's a really fun technique we can practice in future classes. We haven't done this that often, but it's just the evolution of just layering upon. We've done layering. Sorry, my 2-year-old was doing something very crazy. All right. Let's see. My son had a rock in his hand and was throwing it near the window. Imagine what that would be like. Okay. He's not even 2 yet, so it's not like it was my 6-year-old ladies. All right. So, I'm going to just continue layering in these beautiful trees. But you can see the depth and dimension this is taking, right? This side is going to be a little darker. We will add in a little bit more darker colors in this background here. We'll do that after. If you want to do it now, we can, but we can definitely just tuck it in after. But I wanted you to get these greens in just so you can be really playful with the shaping. And you can decide how much of the lighter color you want to keep. You could decide how much of that lighter color you keep. So I'm just going to continue to work my way down the left and the right side of these trees until you're happy with the texture. We could spend 20 minutes on these trees, right? So I want you to do as much or as little as you wish. We all have different temperaments with detail. Some of us are detail oriented, some of us are not. So I respect how much or how little you want time you may want to spend in this space. And that's one of the benefits of the recording. So just always go at your pace during these classes. I'm doing, again, you can see I'm doing a little bit of a second darker layer on top. It's making it look like a little mysterious, which is very cool. I'm just gonna add, I think I might make this one a little darker. So maybe you choose just like 2 or 3 you want to make a little darker. And then those will stand out from some of the others, which is kind of fun. And I have that nice solid darker. Remember I was saying darker at the bottom. It's really bringing that and drawing it to the front. And it's the lightness in the back works because that's the lighting sources. It's coming from back behind these mountains. So it's kind of neat to see that. So as you're playing with your trees, you can tuck in a little bit of trees, a little bit of natural foliage along some of the edge of your river. If your river has a really boring blue edge, just tuck a little bit of the green foliage in. Even like here, you could even tuck in a little bit of the green foliage if you wanted to. It's totally up to you. So you can see how that river is starting to come to life a little bit. Any of these river banks, you can have a small, thin green line. Just use a small brush. We will add a little bit of shaded colors to our river as well. And we will be adding purples and reds to all this bottom, this field in the foreground. It's going to be matching these purples and reds from the mountains, and we're going to be matching them here to this forward area. So I'm going to let my trees dry. They're not done, but I have enough of that green structure that the painting is now like becoming, it's really coming to life, which is really fun. So if you want to keep working on your trees, you can. I'm going to bring in a few other things for your consideration. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a little bit of more darkness, a little more purples coming into this space. So you can decide how much or how little of those purples you want to bring in. I have to make a little bit more of that because I ran out. So let's see here. Red and blue will give you purple. And then adding a little bit of white. Ooh, it's a lot of red, Megan. A lot of red. There we go. So blue and red will give you purple. I'm just mixing that. It's okay to run out of colors because it's pretty easy to remake them for the most part. Because we're not introducing any new paints. We're using all the same paints, so it's pretty, you can improv pretty well. This area above these trees is going to be a little lighter. So I'm just going to bring in a little bit of soft purple with the tip of my brush and just slowly start to just weave this in. You can decide how much or how little you want to use here. I'm going to go right up against the river. And I'm just going to dust. If your trees are wet here, don't go near your trees. But my trees are, I think, pretty much dry. I'm just going to dust the purple just gently in between some of these crevices just to get in between some of here. If you don't want to go on top of I'm just ever so slightly going on top of the green. You can see it's just barely fading there. But I'm just kind of, I'm adding in a little bit more of that shaded ground texture here. If you want to put a little water on your brush, you can. The water will dilute your purple. But you can see how it's a little lighter than the mountain, which is good, but it's not bright yellow because this is a shaded space. I'm going to go right next to my river. And I'm using that downward vertical brush stroke, and I'm just kind of dabbing in between these trees. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go all the way. Anywhere I see that yellow coming through the trees, I'm just gently dabbing in. And you can see that you made a really nice pace. It softened that layer. I can see it's there, but it's not that dark purple mountain. So it's kind of a nice tier. And I'm just going to let it dry. Again, you want like nice smooth lines. So if you need to put a little bit of pressure to make some smooth lines, you can. There. And I'll play with the edge of that river to make it look a little more natural in a little bit. But I colored that in. That was really important. I'm going to take this same color and put it here in the foreground, but I'm going to leave a little bit of a spacing edge for that lighter area. See how I left a little bit of that lighter orange there? I want that, but I'm going to paint everything else in with this darker color. And I'm actually going to make it really dark. So let's see, I might even add in a little bit of this green. I want this to be a little darker down here. It doesn't have to be the green, but I'm having fun. I just mixed a little bit of the purple with the green for this space. So if you want to do like a little purple and a little bit of the green down here, that could be a fun thing to try. If you want to do just dark purple, you can. I'll zoom this down a little bit. This is like a dark green right here, and I'm kind of blending the purple down into it. It's kind of fun. So play with this space. I'm going the dark purple to the green. We're gonna keep this nice and light right here. I left just like a little padding. We're gonna blend this in with a little bit of pink and red on the top of that hillside. And I have a road right here, which I'll paint gray because this is our road to our happy little valley, friends. So again, I'm doing a little purple, but I'm gonna leave a little bit of yellow at the top for a little bit of extra brightness. We're gonna blend that in after. And then I have a road, and my road is outlined right here. So you can always choose if you want to use different colors than I'm using down here, that's fine. But all these colors match one another. I'm using these colors in other areas of my painting. So I have purple. That looks great right here. I'm going to bring this down and make this a little bit more. Maybe I'll just make this side more purpley. Who cares? Doesn't matter what you do. It's all art. You just want it to match, and that's where you can make your choice as an artist of what colors you want to use and where, because there's no right one way or the other. It's always up to you and your choice. Now, if you want to have some fun, and in this yellowy space, I'm going to bring in a little bit of red. And while the purple's still wet, I can kind of blend it right in, which is kind of fun. So I brought in a little bit of red on the top of that purple, like just above it, coming into my orangey space. So I'm just having fun playing with my colors. This is where like art, it's kind of fun to have no rules sometimes. And I might even just leave it like that, which is really fun and just different. But I'll make a gray for the road. So play with that bottom area. We're gonna let everything else dry. And how much fun is this coming together? It's a lot of work, but it's really fun to kind of play with our lines, drawing our eye to the center. We'll definitely bring out our river with some details, and then we'll play around with our sky a little bit. So you can do as much or as little work as you wish. You could even leave our sky like this, just bright and beautiful, or we can add more to it. The only thing we'll add, I'll show you, is adding a little bit more lightness to this top corner over here for the sun to really beam out behind the clouds. But I'm going to make a gray for my road just because I can. So I'm going to use just a little bit of gray for this road. And I'm just going to paint the road in. And then we can just do a little detail work on the road after. If anybody doesn't want this to be a road, if you want this to be like a river, you can have it be a river. If you don't want there to be a road here, you don't have to put a road here. It's totally up to you. Can you guys hear my 2-year-old? He's like, I want mommy. So cute. I'm just doing a nice gray road. Nice gray road. And I'll do some lines down that road too after. But I'm just doing some nice even lines. I'm doing nice lines on the edge of the road. Just to match what if there's whatever these colors are nearby. That works great. I have a little bit of red that should come over a little bit. I'm just going to bring this red around here so it's nice and even, smooth. So just lean back in your chair. One of the things I love talking about in these classes is just a little bit of mindfulness. And I talk about it. It's just about reflecting and pausing as you paint. And it just slows you down just enough for you to acknowledge the changes you're making, acknowledge the decisions you're making along the way. Along the top side of the road here, I'm just going to do a little bit of a darker line just so the road goes off into the distance. And I might even add a little bit of like a grayish green just to add a little bit of that fading away if I can do that. There we go. Okay. I will add some white lines going down the middle of the road. If it's a paved road, if it's a dirt road, I can just add a little bit of like darker contrasting lines to the edges. So your choice. I might make it a dirt road and just add like a little bit of a darker black outline to the edge of the road. Let's see, like a little bit of a small darker outline. This is easy, just like it's gravel, outlining the edge of the gray road with just a darker color. And then if anyone wants to get fancy, you can add a little bit. I'm gonna see what this looks like. You can add like a little bit of highlighting to like the right side of the road with like a little bit of blue if you wanted to, like the river blue, just a little bit of lighting, just like it's popping over the edge. If you want to do a soft touch of that river blue just on like this top edge here and like on the right side of this road, just adds a little bit of lighting to the road. It's kind of neat if anybody wants to try that. You can use your finger to smudge. I just took some of it away, but it's kind of fun to play with some of these lighting details. Again, you can smudge it with your finger. There we go. Okay, so I have a road and I have the bottom area. I'm going to leave all that as is. The other areas to consider for our hills is adding a little bit of orange to the underside of these mountains on the right. So the top sides are going to be nice and light, but if you wanted to add oranges to the bottom side, it would look beautiful. So just find a clean brush or take a minute to use a nice clean brush, and I'll demonstrate how that looks for your consideration. So it's yellow and a little bit of red. You might already have orange on your plate. My oranges are all different colors at this point, so I'm making a new orange. But orange and a little bit of red. And there's so many details in today's class, but it's fun because you get to pick and choose which ones you like, which will really make your artwork unique and stand out compared to everyone else's. So I'm going to put in just, and I'll kind of tuck in, so that's too yellowy. I'm adding a little bit more red. I'm tucking them in just in between the trees and just above the trees, so you can figure out how much or how little, but at the bottom of these little rolling hills, because the tops need to be nice and light. So I'm just going to tuck this in, and you can be as abstract or as artsy as you wish on how you want to bring this in. You can just dance the color in. You could use the tip of the brush, turn the brush around some of these elements. You can bring it in softly, work your way from the bottom and work up. Dance your paintbrush around some of these trees. So I'm going to do this one here first. You can already start to see the difference. I could even make this a little darker if I wanted to.
Megan, I have to go. I'll talk to you
Okay,
soon and I'll wait for the recording.
sounds
Thank you
great. Susan, I
so
hope you feel
much.
better. Take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just going to tuck my brush in. And you can see the difference already, just adding in a little bit of the orange and softly blending it upwards. I'm using a horizontal kind of swishing brush stroke, and I'm dabbing this color, turning my brush and dabbing it in between these trees. It's also adding a little bit of extra glow from beneath the trees too, which is really fun. Then if I want to use my finger and smudge, I can. If I want to put, a little bit of the paint on my brush or water on my brush, I can. You can experiment here. There's a lot of ways to add some of this color in, and there's no wrong way of doing it. Just find a technique that works for you. I love doing the soft kind of horizontal, like a horizontal scuff, left, right, as I work my way up. But the goal is to have the top side of these hills lighter. And if you like this color, figure out where you can bring it in. I might bring some of this color in on top of this mountain here to add a little bit of this orange brightness here, right? I like this orange. I'm going to bring a little bit of it in up here. So things can really start to come together. Maybe I want to add, let me see, a little bit of this orange just tucked in down here a little bit. Just a little bit. And if it's, mine's pretty light, so I might need to add a little bit of white to it. Um, but you can play with that. So I'm just going to soften this here just a touch. And you can figure out if you want to bring any down here. So pick and choose the colors you want to use. Lean back in your chair. Again, today's class, you could spend as much or as little time as you wish. There are a lot of details for today's class, but I really wanted to introduce this backlighting technique on how this beautiful orange has really set in and gave us those great underlying tones to work with. I'm just going to grab a little bit of white. And I was just going to add a little bit of this down here, ever so lightly. Tuck in a little bit of extra something. As an artist, you might get some ideas here or there, and they may or may not make sense, but it's all good. So there's a couple additional details that I'll go over with you before we wrap up class. One of them is adding in a little bit of shading to our river. So if anybody has this blue for our river, which I actually ran out of, I'm going to make a little bit more. I want you to make a little bit, we're going to basically add a little bit of a darker blue to our river for shading. So if anybody has like a different darker blue, you're going to come on the some of the shaded spots of the river, and you're going to add a little bit of the darker blue for some shaded spots. So down here on the bottom, you can see I'm adding in just a little bit of a darker blue here. Maybe by the underside of these trees, where these trees are coming on, there's a little bit of a darker blue coming on this side of the pool. See what I'm seeing? A little bit of this dark, it's just a darker shade of the water blue. Maybe where there's a little bit of the green edging here, I'm just adding in a little bit of darker blue there. So add a little bit of the darker blue shading, definitely here in the back. And much of this can be a darker blue. So I just tucked in a little bit of a darker blue, and I'll show you those areas again. See, there's trees in this space. So down here on the underside of these trees, you can add in a little bit of the darker blue. Here, a little darker blue. We're going to add white accents too in just a minute. But you see how this is a really important thing. The valley, everything's coming in this way, and the river gets tiny tucked in the back. And even if you want to, I might cover up some of this river here. And if you want to play with bringing in any other shaded colors. So we're going to let the darker blue dry in the river first, and then we'll add a little bit of white. One of the other things again, you can keep painting, but I want to show you adding a little bit of a brighter spot in the sky where the sun's coming in. So this is like the orangey area up here. So up here, we're going to make this area a little lighter. So this orange, I want you to make it a little lighter. So you may have lost that orange like me. Just try to find a lighter tone of that orange. And I want you to just create a little bit of extra lightness in this area. And any way you want to bring this in, you can. Maybe I'm just using a soft brush and just slowly shifting this in. But this is the light source. So we want this corner to be a little, this side, and it doesn't have to go all the way up. And this is your sky. So we haven't really done much to the sky. So if you want to do more work to the sky, feel free. But I want this corner to be a little lighter. Any way you want to do that, whether it's like a white, or if it's a lighter orange. See how I made this quite lighter in this space? I'm using a bigger brush. I could probably use a smaller brush going around these mountains. That would probably be a good idea. There we go. So take a few minutes to play with this lighter space. For me, I'm just slowly, it doesn't have to go all the way this far. I'm just making it even. And I can always take the corner of a paper towel and play with this and wipe some of this off. Let's see, if I do a little bit of smudging, I could do a little smudging and kind of smudge some of this back over if I wanted to. So I created a nice light, bright space in that area. And there's a lot of additional things that we can be doing to this. As an example, I would play around with the colors on the mountains a little bit more. Let's see. I want you to look at your own painting and figure out what additional adjustments or details that are important to you. I may bring in like a little bit of red here and just add in a little bit more contrast to this mountain. I have some like funky orange brown colors on here and I just don't like it. So I'm just adding in a little bit more of a solid red to this bottom mountain range. And then I'll probably bring some of this red down here so it matches. So I like to kind of have a continuous flow of color from one area to another. So I'm just going to bring in a little bit of extra red down to the bottom, and I'm going to bring that a little bit of that red there on the top. So look at your painting, see what are some of the details you may want to spend a little more time on. But a painting like today, it could definitely take, 2 hours to paint. It's totally up to you. I will put white lines on the road so everybody can see those. I think that would be good, like a visual statement that's a road down on the bottom. So I'm just going to grab my white paint and I'll put a couple of lines on the road just so people can see it. So people actually know it's a road. There. So that kind of looks like a road a little bit better, a little more. And I just did rough lines, right? Like nothing crazy. They're not perfect. There. So that's a road. And again, having a little bit of a darker line on the edge of your road will help it stand out visually. Like it's just shading. on the side of the road, that asphalt, the dirt, the rocks, right? So that's the road going to my beautiful river valley, etc. There's additional touch-up work you can do. I would consider using a paintbrush and doing nice solid lines on the edges of your mountains. So I'm gonna do this dark purple mountain first. I have a Sharpie so I can see some of that, but doing a nice clean edge on your mountains will make it look more finished, especially since we added lots of different colors here and there. So go to all of your mountain ranges, all of your mountains, and add in a nice clean edge. So I just did the big purple mountain. And I can use this dark purple again to do some of these side mountains where the shading is. You may or may not want a second coat for your shaded areas. I have so many people in these classes that spend an extra hour or two or three, based on the painting to really just fine tune it. So even if, if you have to go or if you have other obligations, you can always come back to this. All of these details are available on this recording. So I encourage you to take your time, go at your own speed, follow your own intuition on what details are most important to you and why, and spend as much or little time as you wish on your artwork. This is one of those, it's really fun to play with all the details along the way. I will show you how to add a little bit of shading down some of these, the lighted areas. So with the dark purple paint, you can do a couple of longer kind of rock formation lines kind of coming down. If you don't like that, you don't have to. I don't have a very, the brush I'm using isn't like perfect, so I'm just gonna just do a little bit just to show you what it looks like, and it can kind of come down into the other one a little bit. But it just adds a little bit more of a natural scape to this rock face, the lighted part. Like those are some crevices per se. And again, going down each of the sides of your lines just to add in the nice firm colors. Helps tremendously. Just the completedness, really. And then as you're working on that, the other detail I'll share is adding a little bit of white to your river on the edges. There's certain edges of the river that you can add a little bit of white for it to come to life. And it's really around these shorelines. So where you have these little peninsulas coming out, you can do a little bit of a white edge to highlight these shorelines on the right side. And if you want to add in around on the other edge of the peninsulas, you can add in a little bit of white here. So it's where the river is kind of coming in and around. And then there's a tree line that's coming in, so it's hitting the shade there. And then maybe a little bit up here, maybe. So it just, that water, it kind of creates a little bit of tuck with that water. Okay, and that is like not the best river, obviously. It's not perfectly shaped, but you get the picture. It is not my best winding river, but it's okay. I might make it a little bit bigger over here, actually. Just bring it over. The strong S curves also help a lot with a river. So I might make it a little bit bigger over here. So it's funny, you can always kind of change your river shape if you want to. You just have to have a little patience. But again, if there's any questions, if you're watching today's recording and you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I'm happy to be a resource for you. I'm just making my river a little wider here and coming out and doing a little bit more of a sharper corner. And then I'll come in with my dark green and just change that edge. There are so many additional things you can add to this painting today. You could easily add clouds to the sky. I could demonstrate a couple of simple clouds quickly if anyone's interested. Happy to do that. Let's see. So with a small brush, and these are going to be really thin, more horizontal style clouds. You could just do like a white line kind of coming across. I'll bring this up a little bit. Maybe I'll add just a couple of clouds. So a couple of lines first. So those nice strong lines. And then just doing a couple of like making the edges nice and long and lean, but you could add in a couple of like a little bit of like a cloud cumulus wiggle on top, as simple as that. And that could be a cloud. And then filling in some of these clouds. The top sides of the clouds need to be the brightest, so or the whitest. So you could fill in the top of the clouds first. So this is an option. If you don't like clouds, you don't have to do this. Again, I'm here just giving you a few extra details to consider. You could just do some long, skinny lines if you wanted to. And then if you want some clouds kind of going behind these mountains, you could tuck a couple clouds right behind these mountains if you wanted to. That works. And I might make another set of clouds right here. Like there's just a little bit of a cloud front. So those are optional clouds if you wanted to add clouds. And the other thing to this painting is if you wanted to make the sky even a little bit more moody, like if I wanted to add some more oranges to the sky, I could come in with some oranges and just add some more oranges. And I could make it more of sunset colors if I wanted to. So if I add some oranges, again, I'm just painting on top. And if I wanted to get a little moody, I could grab like a little bit of my red and just put a little bit of red and just start to kind of blend it down. And you can start to really change and transform your sky. So look at that. I made it a little moody, a little bit more sunsetty by just taking a little red and a little orange. And I have that back underground lighting, which is so nice, that warm lighting. So I'm really just doing a little bit of a brush of a color, a little orange, a little yellow, just to really transform that sky. Isn't that pretty? And I kept this corner nice and light. I'm just going to shift my little clip and just add in just a little bit of this orangey red. And I'm just doing left, right with my brush. You don't need a ton of paint to do this. And look at the color it just gave the sky. We had that base underlighting. So there's a lot going on. It's really quite fun. Um, I would do additional work on this if it was me. I would add in some more purples here. I would add in some more pinky colors here into this mountain. It is totally up to you on how much or how little you want to do for your artwork today. But overall, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If anyone watching the recording has any questions, please let me know. But again, my name is Megan, and I'm so glad you're here with today. And I do hope to see you at a future class.